You said this place was steps from the water.
We just haven't found the steps yet.
How much did we save?
Enough.
Enough to get lost?
Or you could book a stay with Hilton.
Welcome to your oceanfront room, just steps from the water.
The Hilton sale is on now. Book on Hilton.com or the Hilton app and save up to 20% to get the stay you expected. When you want savings, not surprises, it matters where you stay. Hilton, for the stay.
Pool days call for cookouts and lots of laundry. This Memorial Day at Lowe's, save $80 on a Charbroil Performance Series 4-burner gas grill. Now just $199. Plus, get up to 45% off select major appliances to keep dishes, clothes, and food fresh. Having fun in the sun is easy with us in your corner. Our best lineup is here at Lowe's. Valid through 5/27. While supplies last. Selection varies by location. See associate or Lowe's.com for details.
Gas mark 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I'm gonna cook a meal that's gonna make you mine. We're turning up the oven, now we're ready to roast. When you touch me, honey, you'll love it the most. Come on and put me in a loving stew.
Welcome to another British.com podcast. My name's Stuart Wright, and today's guest is actor, producer, writer, director Craig Conway. Welcome to the show.
Thank you very much. It's lovely to be here.
Now, you're going to be here, as everybody is, to share 3 films that have impacted everything in your adult life. But before that, you're going to talk to us about your new venture, Runway Rooms, an independent micro studio and creative runway for film, TV, digital IP development. In short, and what I read on your blurb, is that Runway exists because too many creatives are asked to give away everything and own nothing. And
yeah,
I'll put a link in the show notes to Runway Rooms when the podcast goes out. But for people to find out at their leisure. But to expand on my summary, how do you describe what Runway Rooms is, and how do you intend to make it work for the benefit of creatives?
Yeah, I mean, I think essentially the Runway Rooms it came about because of a kind of simple belief, really.
Okay,
and that is people don't lack talent in the Northeast or anywhere for that matter.
Yeah.
But the big thing that we lack is access. You know, I've been in the industry 35 years now, and I've seen some extraordinary people shut out. They can't get through the gatekeepers. So you've got these creatives who are essentially kind of waiting for permission. And so I wanted to build something that was independent, that was people, and it was also practical. And you know, there's lots of talk at the moment all over the UK, the US, everywhere about studios. And to me, a studio doesn't begin with a soundstage. You can build buildings all you want, but it begins with the people and the ideas that are inside. And you know, we're actually positioned next to Newcastle International Airport, which is handy. People coming here, but that was the idea around the fact of well, let's call it a runway, because actually that's what we need as independents. We need a runway to be able to, you know, produce the work that we want to do and have a platform and a space where we can collaborate, move forward with writers, actors, directors, work together, and get away from just doing what ordinarily we all fall into, which is like, oh, I'll join a networking club, or I'll join a training course, or I'll kind of, you know, do a kind of, I don't know, some kind of course that exists where I'm at the end of it, I come away, I paid a lot of money and I've gotten nothing from it, and I've got to start again. So, and then the second side to that is I was never able, even though I was offered a place at drama school, my local council and people like that wouldn't give me the bursary or the award to go to London and kind of go to university or drama school, because at the time it was seen as something that was more like a hobby.
Okay.
And so I've kind of seen now that film and entertainment is actually, you know, it's one of the biggest bloody providers to the GDP. So you know, and we've been saying this for years, but now the government and everybody else have realised, oh, actually everybody's got a screen in their hand. Everybody wants content. So the creators and the creatives behind that content are not the people sitting in the studios. It's the people on the ground, on the floor, working it. And we need to have a space to do that. But what we also need to do is ensure that it starts in education. So we need to start educating people. And I mean this right into to kind of, I guess the grassroots of it all. Creativity needs to be embedded in our education system. And then we need to ensure that they're working and experiencing how creativity impacts not just individuals or filmmakers or story makers, but also communities, societies, cultures. And then we need to ensure that we have a bridging connection to bring people from education into employment and then continuing. Education should be practical living. You should be taught how to practically live with the talents you have. It's not about pretending to be somebody or passing an exam that gives you credit or skill or talent. It's the individuals together and then essentially giving them the confidence to go forward and be a part of their society by contributing. That's what true education should be: contribution, not retribution and being told, sit there, shut your mouth, and if you don't do this, you're not good enough.
In terms of what Runway Rooms hopes to offer, then, are people coming to you just for advice? Are you bringing? Because you said you're not networking events, you're not a training school. So what's the practical side of what you're doing in terms of helping to harness these skills that people have already, kind of thing?
So the bigger picture is that we tried to get a lot of public funding and support. And I held an open day event, and we'd been applying for grants, funds, all of these things, because again we'd linked with universities, so we had the education side working with us. But it was very clear that we in the open day event we had a load of independent creatives gathered in a rather large room on site, and I asked a simple question, which was, how many people have made or produced or created or directed, written content that has actually got out there and is in the public domain? All these hands went up. It was fantastic. You were like, yes, here we go. And then you ask a few more questions and get to the real one, which is, how many of you have actually seen any profit from anything you've actually made? And not one hand went up.
Okay.
So you then go, well, there's a problem. And and that's not just a problem, that is a real big gap. And the reason we haven't got it is that as independent creatives, if you're not part of a institution or an organization, you are fending for yourself. So you might raise a little bit of money, and then you might make something, or a short or a feature. You might even win awards, laurels, all of this kind of stuff. People go, saw your film, I think you're great. But ultimately, when you want to progress that, sell that, and make money on that, you are faced with a gatekeeping structure. Whereas, if I make a feature film, which, I've produced several now.
Yeah.
So I've produced several features. I hand that over to the people who are saying, well, we're financing, we're doing this. And then what happens is the distribution deal comes and we never get the reports. We never get transparency. We never get to know where it's going, at what cost. It's all cloak and dagger, and it's all smokescreen. And I've done films as an actor for 35 years. I've had profit participation in them, and I've never seen any. So, and I know some of them have grossed multi millions.
Yeah.
Way bigger than the budgets. So the only way we can do that is not to try and beg to be in the system that seemingly gives us our what do you call it? This is my moment type of thing.
Yeah.
We need to create our own system as independent creatives, because actually, when we're picked up by somebody and when somebody goes, this is the best new thing, what we tend to do is handed over to them, and then we're just exploited for what we've got. And they're exploiting our talents and retaining all of that. And I actually think, well, we live in a society now, especially with the way things operate, self-distribution models, blockchain, all of this kind of stuff. We can come together as communities, cities, areas, cultures, countries, and we can start making films the way we want to, tell the stories the way we want to do that, and then negotiate the deal on more fair terms, more transparency. I think that's just an easy ask.
And is you're based up in the Northeast, like you say, by Newcastle Airport? Is Runway Rooms about Northeast creative talent, or is the purview broader than that?
It is at the moment in the way of I've set it here because I've seen filmmakers in this area for so long, cast, crew, everybody, and for the majority of people, you have to leave your city or your town to pursue something, and I don't believe that is necessary. And now I'm seeing Liverpool, Manchester, all these places. And even if you look at the old Atlanta model, before the pandemic, those cities, towns, and different communities were kind of embedding themselves and becoming self-sustainable models. And I think actually that's the way we do it. It's like the devolution of spends to councils across the UK. We need to do exactly the same, but put the control in the hands of those who actually make the content, not people who assume this is how you make content or just look at the above the line and start carving out their own nest for that. We need to put it in the hands of the people who make the actual product, the content.
So not to be too grand about it then, are you saying that you're wanting to create almost like a critical mass in the Northeast then of creatives? So if rather than everybody fending for themselves, they kind of have a... Do you remember there was... remember independent record shops used to be called Chain with No Name? And so it was like... It was this idea that, Piccadilly Records and Spinning were separate because they were in Coventry and Manchester, but when they advertised in the music press, they paid a little bit to get a big advert that they all benefited from. So is it that kind of thing? It's almost like a sort of collective way of helping individuals.
Yeah, it is. And that's why what I've done is, we've set up, and we've also connected with true business minds who want to support movement. And it's not about disrupting anything. We're not saying we want to take over and we don't want to stop anything that's happening because anything that's happening is good. But at least give us a voice. Yeah. And also we've self-invested. So all of the founders that are coming, and we did like 100 founders presentation and campaign. Yeah. So all the people who have invested in that are investing small amounts so we can collaborate, come together, start creating content. Yeah. I mean, we've got there's been hundreds of writers and directors and producers and actors who have been signing up. And those who are in a position to be able to kind of work together at the moment and just invest that little bit more now, we're founding an area and a space and a community that can then open up. So now we're working with people in Zurich, Switzerland, Mumbai, the USA, and people are getting in touch and they want to bring their productions here. And then I can put people to work. I can say to crew members who are waiting for the tiny bit or a day player to a costume designer who's been in the industry for 30 years, but you only get a day player part when the BBC come here to shoot a TV show. Yeah. Because they brought all their London crew.
Do you know, this is very similar. When in the 90s, there was a bunch of artists in Manchester who got called the infrastructuralists, right? Because what they did was they set themselves up, they found some spaces in the city that they could call galleries so they could show work. And what they did then was they reached out to the Venices, the Zurichs, the New York, because they were always told you've got to go via London or else you can't succeed. And they just decided to bypass London and make their own connections around the world. So the connections they made became more real as opposed to via a gatekeeper, I suppose, would be the expression, I suppose.
Yeah, and I lived in London for, kind of 20 odd years, really. And I love London. I think it's a brilliant place, and I had a wonderful time. But I also saw you can't live your trade there anymore because you don't thrive. You just exist.
Yeah.
And then all you're doing is trying to pick up the scraps. And I'm kind of bored of people saying people don't want to go to the cinema. That's, pardon the French, but it's bullshit. People want to go to the cinema, but they actually want to see their stories, their communities, and themselves represented on screen.
Yeah. Yeah, I think we've seen last year. I mean, obviously there's always examples to prove real, but I think something like I Swear, which wasn't a big budget movie,
brilliant
critically and got the plaudits as well. So, well, look, I mean, one last thing then. Obviously, I'll put links in the show notes so people can read more about what Runway Rooms is. But just generally, then, for people listening in, what do you think a writer, producer, director, somebody who's creating their own stuff right now, just as some advice, lessons learned that you've got that you're trying to get people to get their head round in terms of what you're doing? What kind of what simple nugget advice could you offer to filmmakers out there listening that they shouldn't be forced to give away just because they think that's how it's done?
Most people are really waiting to be chosen.
Okay.
And that's one of the biggest problems. The self-worth that we have as creatives, when you get offered a job or when somebody says, come and work with me, as an independent creative, you spend your life feeling obliged or feeling like, oh my God, like, thank you so much. I'm so humbled, because we think or we believe that somehow we've been chosen, and we haven't. We had the ability, we had the talent, we always had it. We just didn't have access.
Yeah.
So, and that's what we're trying to do. We're trying to build something where people can choose themselves before they get asked to go forward. And then you've got some negotiating to do then. And you've got a little bit of power and you retain your self-worth. All independent creatives are waiting for somebody to give them permission. Yeah. There is no permission to do anything. You need to get enough like-minded people together to be able to go without the gatekeepers and go, I'm not being chosen, I'm doing it, and you can choose to work with me or not.
Yeah. So a combination of know yourself, know your own worth, and agency will take you a lot further than waiting to be chosen.
Yeah, and come together. A studio is not an organization. A creative studio is actually a gathering of strong minds ready to stand up for what they've created. That's what that true essence of a studio is. It was back in the day, Chaplin did it, United Artists, and nobody had done it up until that point in the way he did. So we're at that time, just like the I guess in a way, all the tech companies and all the digital side of the world at the moment, they've already been doing that. And there are too many people at the moment kind of structuring how we make films or how we make content and produce content based on what they knew 5 or 6 years ago. You can't base what you do now on 5 or 6 years ago's success.
No.
You have to be able to be where you are and look at where you're going for 5 or 6 years.
Amazing. Well, look, thank you for sharing that. It's a great insight into the shifting sands that is our creative industries and how we can maybe tackle it with a little bit more collective thought and a bit more self-worth in ourselves. I'll put links to the show notes, like I say, to Runway Rooms. And now we shall move seamlessly into 3 films that have impacted everything in your adult life. Are you ready for this?
I'm ready. Come on, let's do it.
Okay. For those that haven't heard before, Craig has given me 3 movies. I'll do them in the order that I was given them. I'll do a little introduction and then hand the floor over to Craig to tell me why these films are memorable and had such an impact on him. And every time 5 minutes is up, we will hear this sound. You can hear that okay at your end?
That's a good sound.
And on your first film, we are going to 1995's Haine, written and directed by Matthew Kassovitz. I'm guessing it was Vincent Cassel's breakout role, certainly in English-speaking territories, and takes us on a fraught 24-hour journey via the lives of 3 young men in the French suburbs the day after a violent riot Fun fact, and I didn't know this, the film was originally made in colour, but changed to black and white in post by Kasovitz himself. A colour re-release was planned in case it bombed at the box office, but as we know, that never was needed. And the monologue that Vince does in the mirror is exactly the same, but obviously spoken in French, as Travis Bickle's monologue in Taxi Driver. So tell me, Craig, why does Haine have such impact on you and hold such fond memories?
Okay, so, well, first of all, Vincent Cassel is probably one of the reasons that I wanted to do film as an actor.
Really?
Yeah. Up until I saw that movie, film wasn't really interesting to me. I just wanted to do theatre, and multimedia theatre was happening around that time. So I was always on stage. Stage was everything to me. But when I watched that movie, I remember thinking, this is theatrical. It's got such beauty, integrity, honesty, rawness, and there is a story set in a conflict, a world that doesn't kind of make sense, and even down to the idea of doing it in black and white. What I love about that is nothing is black and white. Like, everything spoke to me from a tonal experience and from a really visceral experience. And I grew up in a pretty rough estate. And, you kind of go, well, where do I go from here? What am I going to do? And there was moments, especially when I think they're sitting looking at the Eiffel Tower at one moment.
Yeah.
And there's this whole exchange. And then they kind of, I think he either clicks or blows something, and the lights go out because they've been there all night talking. And so all the lights on the Eiffel Tower go out. And I remember having a feeling of going, that there is nothing wrong with romanticizing the world that surrounds you. Like, you can hate it all you want. It can be as shit as it is. But ultimately, there is infinite beauty, and I find it a really beautiful film. I find it heartwarming. I find it captures that kind of aggression you feel when you're growing up and you don't know where you belong or what you're trying to do.
Yeah.
And I just think Vincent Cassel was incredibly kind of. It was almost like he was improving a lot of it. But you knew there was a choreography to it as well. And that's what you don't see that a lot in movies, like a true choreography. So everything just worked. Every level of that movie for me was just beautiful. And I haven't watched it for a while, but I've just been telling my son, who's now an actor, that's the film he has to keep watching. Because it's just incredible. It literally blows my mind.
What do you think? If it was the thing that turned you on to film, what tips do you think you can take from it as an actor who's learning their craft now? What could they watch Haine and take lessons from?
That you have to be there. You have to be present. There's not one person on that screen who is trying to be something or pretending to be something. Vincent Cassel is very, very comfortable, even at a young age there, of being present within himself. And all too often, as actors, we spend a lot of time trying to show that we're connected or trying to fight to be connected to the role. There's nothing like that. What you have to do is be you, and I mean that in a complete way, and then deal with the circumstances you're given the way you would. That's what makes it interesting, because nobody will react to something the way you do. And then you start realizing, oh, actually, I'm okay. I spent a lot of years trying to impress people in audition rooms, or wondering, oh, well, why can't I get that part? Why can't I do this? And actually, here I am, 35 years later.
Right on cue. Right then, sir. We are moving on to your second choice, which is 1981's American Werewolf in London, written and directed by John Landis, of course. It tells the story of two American students who are out walking in Britain and attacked by a werewolf that none of the locals admit exists. One dies and one wakes up in hospital, having nightmares, haunted by their dead friend, trying to come to terms with the murderous werewolf beast that lives inside him now. Fun fact, this is John Landis' personal favourite film of all the films he's directed, and proof that the entertainment business gods giveth and taketh in equal measure. David Norton, who plays the lead, was reportedly cast because John Landis spotted him in a Dr. Pepper advert. However, because Norton was later let go by Dr. Pepper because of the nude scene he did in American Werewolf in London.
No way.
So
Wow.
tell me, Craig, why does American Werewolf in London have such impact on you and hold fond memories?
Okay, so basically my brother, my older brother, who I really don't see at all really now, but we keep in touch. He had this thing when I was growing up where he would slam horrors in front of me,
Right.
and kind of go, "What's this?" And like, you know, Mum would be working away, or we'd be with me nana, and he'd be like, "Yeah, what's this? You love this," and nobody knew he was making me watch things like The Basket Case, Evil Dead, all this kind of stuff, right?
Yeah.
So I knew he would get a bollocking for it, but he got me to watch The Exorcist, and then he got me to watch American Werewolf in London, and I remember laughing so loud at it, and also, you know, kind of going, "Oh my God, like, what is this?" So again, I've got this thing about, I guess it's like something about magic, or something about that kind of where imagination and reality, you don't know which is which. And I've always had a very active mind.
Right.
And that film allowed me to laugh, be scared, but also fall in love with the characters as well.
Mm.
You know, that they're all likable, lovable characters, and again, you know, all the performances, everybody you see in it, and the towns, and again, there's the northern side of it. You know, I think seeing for the first time ever in a movie, there were Northerners. You know, and you see these Americans, and for me as a kid, Americans were always like, well, they must be famous because Americans are just always famous. and then seeing these two guys go into a Yorkshire pub, and it's like, "You made me miss that. Remember the Alimore?" And I'm like, I know blokes like that down the social club.
Yeah.
And I go, I'm seeing our world, Northern, the North is in there. And yes, it's Yorkshire, but it's just down the road from us. So that's not hard to kind of imagine, like, if it's happening down there, oh my God, that could happen up here. So I got dead excited at the fact that there were Northern people in it. That really gave me a buzz as a young lad. But also, I love the whole monster genre and horror, and I just got obsessed by it. And then it stayed with me all the way through. Obviously, I met Neil Marshall.
Yeah.
And then I started seeing villains, and then we did Dog Soldiers and Werewolves there. And so horror is a genre that I absolutely adore, especially when you're experimenting with films that you can do. But I've never seen comedy and horror come together so well. And that transformation scene, I've still never seen anybody get beyond better than that for me.
I was going to say, we're nearly 50 years on from it now, and it's better. CGI doesn't do it better, does it?
Doesn't get anywhere near. And that's that's an old kind of stop animation technique.
Yeah, I mean, it's only 7 seconds on screen. You know, it's not some of the transformation elements that Rick did to do the special effects wasn't on screen. In fact, he was complaining apparently to John Landis, like, I've done all this bleeding work, and you only show. And then when he saw it with an audience, he realised the bits that they showed were the bits that made it magical.
And you remember every frame of it. You don't forget, but also that relationship between him, you know, sitting in the cinema talking to all the dead people. I mean, even those small performances, everything there is brilliant.
5 minutes is up, sir. For Craig's final choice, we're going all the way back to 1946 for Frank Capra's classic Christmas movie, It's a Wonderful Life, adapted to screen from Philip Van Doren Stern's story, which I didn't realise it was originally as just a short story, by Francis Goodrich and Albert Hackett, plus Capra. It tells the tear-jerking tale of an angel who is sent from heaven to help a desperately frustrated businessman see the value of his own life. Fun fact, and interestingly what you were talking about in terms of studios, the set for Bedford Falls was constructed in 2 months and was one of the longest sets that's ever been made for an American movie. It covered, now get this, 4 acres.
Wow.
And included 75 buildings, a main street, a factory district, a residential, and a slum area. Main Street alone, Craig, was 300 yards. That's a set, isn't it?
That's insane.
So tell me, I mean, it seems daft even asking, given the status of this movie, but why does It's a Wonderful Life have such an impact on you?
Yeah. So I watched that film, and I think the very first time I watched it was with my nana.
Okay.
And my nana was the woman who introduced me to the Friday matinee, which we used to have. I think it was Tyne Tees or ITV back in the day.
Yeah.
Every Friday there was a series of old movies that would play, and they were all black and white classics, and Chaplin, Laurel and Hardy, Buster Keaton, all of that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
And I remember watching that movie, and I didn't really have a very solid or good upbringing. I didn't really have a father in the way that you probably should have.
Yeah.
And I remember falling in love, thinking he's a man who's trying to do everything right for his family.
Yeah.
And my mum suffered a lot through all of that time. So I remember thinking, wow, like there are good people out there. So I kind of really fell in love with the story, the family element of it. But also, I had that real connection to that feeling of despair. Like, I don't know if I can handle this. And that was from quite a young age. And that stayed with me. So every year I've tried to watch that movie.
Okay.
It's part of my thing. That's my kind of Christmas present type of thing.
Yeah.
And I've always instilled that into what I do. And I've made Harvey watch it. I've made Andrea watch it, even though she fell asleep. But but I love now as an actor and filmmaker, I love the fact again that for Hollywood, that was a risky film, I think.
Oh, it's subversive as hell. As hell.
Yeah. And at that time, to be dealing with issues of, potential suicide and despair, that is way, way ahead of its time. I mean, now it's a film that I think everybody should watch, and not because of the kind of religious connotations to it, but it's not even about that. The angels don't represent heavens or gods. What they actually represent is the feeling that we are always less than, no matter what we have. And again, it's that down to that self-worth.
Yeah.
When he comes to terms with what he is, who he is, and he's always trying to chase the next big thing, and that film can sit with you in a very profound way, because it's gentle. It's not at any point aggressive or at you because of the time when it was shot. So you've got this beautifully crafted, cinematic, but also magical experience that even, again, the black and white that we find ourselves in, which is kind of what the majority of us do. We wake up and go, well, today is going to be like that because yesterday was like that, and blah, blah, did this. And it's very black and white. So that film allows you to sit in the area of being able to dream a little bit more and connect a little bit more with how beautiful is it to be where you actually are. And that is a lesson for every actor, every director.
Finish your thought. Go on.
And you know, I've done those roles now: actor, director, writer, producer. And the best times is when you find yourself sitting within that space with what you're doing and who you are in the moment of doing, rather than trying to show how good you are at it.
I also think as well, the context of the year after you've just dropped a megaton bomb on a country and ended a world war, I think being brave making a film is neither here nor there. I mean, it can fit. Because if you think the same year, you've got films like Lost Weekend, Billy Wilder, which is tackling alcoholism. And you think of the people that would have come back from war who would have been fighting demons and stuff. And I think, you know, the kind of people involved were in faraway countries and all they wanted to be was home. And I think these, you know, those kind of messaging, it feels a bit trite in this day and age where we can just move around with freedom. And, you know, the current climate is obviously crazy and dark right now, but generally speaking, the speed at which we move around the earth compared to, say, 1946 is so much quicker and we take it for granted. Whereas I think, you know, people were torn away from their homes and being put in foreign places to free the world. And I can imagine all you were thinking about was that small town where you grew up and the family and the friends that made where you grew up special.
Yeah, it's just beautiful. It really is. I can't not fall in love every time I watch that movie with not with anything in particular, but just in the idea of that your journey is worth it. And you know, and that's the thing. When you get rid of it all, home is kind of being at peace or at rest with who you are. That's a result, man.
Indeed.
Is a wonderful life.
Indeed. Well, look, thank you for sharing those stories about 3 films that impacted everything in adult life. It was a privilege to hear it. And thank you for introducing us to Runway Rooms. It sounds like an exciting thing you've got going on up in the Northeast. I wish you all the best of luck with it. And it just gives me to say thank you very much to give us your time on the Britflix podcast.
Thank you very much. Cheers.
Do remember to subscribe on Apple Podcasts, follow on Spotify, or wherever you listen to your podcasts for more movies that impacted your life. And if you want to, I'd love to know what your favourite movies are, what your fondest movie memories are. So please share your favourite movies that impacted your life on Twitter. Look for @LeightonRocks. And you can always leave me a review, 5-star preferably. And in your review, tell us which 3 films impacted your life. Best ones get read out on the podcast.
Hey there, Hugh from Podderation here. If you're liking today's show, why not check out DL Gaming, one of the longest running gaming podcasts out there. Join the Digital Logic crew every week as they talk about the latest games they've played, the latest and greatest gaming news, and perhaps some of what makes the gaming world tick as well. If you want to learn more, check out our website at podderation.com.